Alright, here we are at today's hedge trim. Now, this is the crepe myrtles from my recent crepe myrtle video. I'm going to clean those up today. But mostly we're working on these hedges, and there's really not much at all on these to take off. A lot of these I may not even touch, just because these in particular, so let's look at it's like a type of holly. So these in particular are really susceptible to cold damage. Um, these hollies are a slightly different variety. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. But you can see the difference in the leaf maybe. How this one's more smooth on the sides and this one has the little pricklies. These guys are really susceptible to cold damage, so I don't do too much to them. Like I might do a little tiny bit, like on this little ugly guy, but I won't do too much to those. These, we'll just do a basic shape up, and yeah, we're gonna get real just quick and basic on that. Of course, we're gonna tidy up the crepe myrtles. This one didn't get as many suckers on it, but same thing. These we're going to take just a little light cut on. Light cut on these. And come on over here. The juniper we're going to leave alone. The dead trees we're going to leave alone. Cut these grasses out. There's a lot to do here. A lot to do. And you can see the growth on these, how minimal it is. There's just not a lot to do on these. And you don't want to do too much because, again, they're susceptible to cold damage. I'm going to hit this with a weed eater a little bit just to clean it up. Again, I'm not touching the juniper. Got a lot to take off of these hollies. We've got this ligustrum shrub. We got one standard ligustrum, one variegated, and they're mixed. And I just cut them into a hedge. And there is a random Nandina in there. There's no Nandinas anywhere else here. I don't know if it was just, what I imagine it was there was two small ligustrum, maybe a Nandina, and then the ligustrum just took over. So, you know, however that went, I have no idea why there's a Nandina in there. Got the big holly to cut, more hollies. I don't know who installed this landscape, but something tells me they were getting kickbacks from Big Holly because they got hollies everywhere. Different varieties of holly. Lots of little, not boxwood, but these are Japanese holly. If you're wondering if you got holly or a boxwood, the holly, Japanese holly, they have smaller leaves. A boxwood has bigger leaves. Another holly. More holly. Again, small leaves. It's the Japanese holly. It's not a boxwood. And got a good chunk to take off of this one. And now, in the landscape we did yesterday at the pharmacy, you'll notice those hedges they had a disease, and they weren't growing fully. So this is what those shoots should have looked like. And also the stems themselves were not thickening up well, so they didn't cut very well. These should cut quite a bit better, and we're going to see here in a minute just how well they actually do cut. But look, we're not even done. Like, we come back here, unanimous, I forgot how to pronounce it, but that's what that is. Got a bunch of stuff to cut out of it. Burning bush. I'm going to go real light on it because it's just now getting that color that you want to see out of your burning bush. And so ideally, if we leave it alone, this whole thing will be that nice red color. Got another juniper to not touch. And then this bed over here to, like I say, hit with the weed eater once. Clean up around this nandina. I hate nandinas. So I guess there is a nandina on this property. This flower bed right here too, it holds so much water that none of the pre-emergents really work. So you get these little weeds that pop up and they don't pay for the weed control or the weed pulling. Got this random thing that grew up in here. It's like a ligustrum weed. You got all this juniper. You got stuff to pull out. And now, I probably won't get all of this done today. I typically do this one in 2 rounds, but this juniper has been in the process of dying for years now. I mean, you can finally see it. We got a big chunk out of it, but I haven't touched these junipers for that reason, because when I showed up, there was a ton of juniper material to pull out and cut out, and they're still in the process of dying. But we got that. Another burning bush to clean up a little bit. A dead tree limb. Let's see. All right. So there's that. Then we got one last shrub. So I think I went through and counted, not including the junipers. There's like 175 bushes here, or plants. Oh yeah, I'm totally forgetting about these freaking nandinas, no wonder. So these nandinas, counting those, counting all the little bushes, all the little roses, I think there was a total of, what am I talking about? There's nandinas here too. They had nandinas here, that's why there's a random nandina. Anyway, 175 bushes, give or take. It's a freaking lot, a whole lot. And for that reason, I'm going to get to work, and because it's sprinkling, me sitting here yapping, I'm missing out on prime cutting time. And now here's a downside of having grass clippings. It gets on everything. I mean, it is all over my truck, and that's where I put them. I mean, it flies all over everything. So I need a better solution for that. All right, so here we are with another little cleanup. This one did not go well this year. This was the fall run. I do this 3 times a year, so everything you're seeing in this video, all these hedges, get this treatment 3 times a year, because that's sort of my minimum service when it comes to doing hedge maintenance and landscape maintenance. You know, I want things to look as good as I can get them, right? And if you opt in for your pine straw, I'll include your weed pulling and weed spraying in the beds as well. I don't do it for free as a part of my lawn care unless, you know, we just free is in quotations, but I'll bump up the price if you want to do no mulch, no pine straw, and just do mowing and still get your flower beds weeded. That's always going to be an extra cost. But if you do get mulch, you do get pine straw, I always keep your beds clean and clear of weeds, because it makes it so much easier to do that part when there's fresh mulch material. But anyway, this day was tough. You can see the clouds here in the back.
It was super windy. I think it just rained the night before, and it ends up raining here at the end of it. I did mow and try to mulch up some of these clippings here before I left. I just didn't record it because I was trying to get out of there. It was starting to get cold and windy, and just the whole day sucked, you know. But I do come back a week later and finish the whole thing on a much nicer day, which ends up turning into a horrible day too. I don't know, it was so funny. Just, it was such a nice day at the beginning, on the next little bit, and then by the end of it I'm like running away. All right, here we are 3 weeks later. um, I was on I was coming to trim the hedges over across the street, but I saw this needed to be mowed, so I came over and mowed it. And I just wanted to give a quick recap. We planted these hydrangeas when we did their pond straw and landscape maintenance 3 weeks ago. Still green as could be. Today is November the 9th, I think, I want to say. Yep, November the 9th. Our flower pots are still doing well. Looking good, looking good. They may be a little dry. No, there's moisture. But the flower pots are still good. The added flower bed is good. All that there. Pine straw still looking good. Um, Coleus or I can't remember how to say the name of it, but it finally lost its leaves for the season. But I'm going to leave it for until probably their next service, because I think those mums should die, and I can just take the whole thing out. Check out these roses after I did that thin out job. Look at those blooms. This is a lot of blooms for November the 9th, the second week of November, right? You can see a lot of the new growth that comes up. So trust me, if you want really nice looking rose bushes all year long, do that once or twice a year and you're golden. Knockout roses, they're bred in a way that you don't have to trim them, but I promise you, the more you cut them, the more they're going to do for you in terms of blooms. So proof is in that pudding right there. Same thing over here. The mums are going to go out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll pull those. Pots are still doing good, or those have moisture, so flower pots are good, and plants are all still alive. Good. And that's kind of the look we're going for with those hydrangeas over there in that other corner. Those were put in by the prior landscaping company. Got the lawn mowed up, edged up, and I did have all the leaves off of it, but they've blown in already from other places, so that's how that goes. Now let's go across the street and finish those hedges. Here we are back at this one. So we were here last Sunday when it was raining and miserable, and now we're back. And I just wanted to point something out, because I know a lot of people wait for the wind. I know a lot of people are going to have comments on this, which is the fact that I just kind of, a lot of this I trimmed it and then I blew it out. But I want you to look here. There's really not anything left behind. And here we are a week later. You really can't tell that I did it that way, you know. Now if you get way down in there and you look, you know, like if we look super close, okay, yeah, like you can see some clippings. But look, this tree drops leaves constantly. It's going to cover up 90% of that. Those little bits that I can't blow out, and the rest of it, it did get blown out and mulched up. So just looking through here, you know, you really can't tell that I ended up doing it the way that I did it. But I know a lot of people are going to have concerns, and there are some spots that are worse than others. But again, those leaves are going to lose their green and it's all going to blend. And that's one of the things about pine straw. You really can't blow out every last single piece. But even so, you're okay, you know. It's not a detriment to do it the way that I did it there. So let's get these tarped up and get to trimming.
All right, and here we are back again. So these are some of the funnest hedges to trim. There is a lot on this property, but there's enough variety and height and shape that it kind of makes it interesting for me. It can get a little overwhelming, but certainly not boring. And really, it just kind of depends on how the schedule and how the week's going in terms of, how caught up am I overall. Because like I say, this job in particular, typically I'll split into 2 sort of 4-hour sessions, because you have to keep in mind with all this landscape space, I have to go through and clean up all of the, the dead portions of the lilies. I have to go pull the weeds. I have to make sure that, the nandinas are cleaned up on the bottoms so that it looks neat and tidy. So there's a lot of just little things to do, and not all of it's going to be pictured here. This would be a 7-hour long or probably at least a 2-hour long session if I just went ahead and did every tiny little thing on camera, and it would take me 4 days, because filming just multiplies the time required by 2 at least. This thing is one of my favorites to trim. I love it. It's just, like I say, it's just one of those things that I like to do. I really hope I get to do a lot more hedge trimming stuff this year. It's one of my favorite parts of the business, honestly, whenever I get to take a break from the constant week-to-week mowing and do something other than just blowing off the how's that for some sound effects, y'all? But see, look, there's all sorts of things here. This shrub has always been a weird shape, and it just grew in weird. And here in a few minutes, one of the things that went wrong on this job, I was kind of mentioning it earlier, apart from the weather turning bad at the end of this day, this hedge trimmer all of a sudden just wasn't really cutting well. And I'm thinking it's mostly because of the teeth are just so wore down. This is we're going on, 4 years with this hedge trimmer, and I do this job and many other hedge trimming jobs with these hedge trimmers 3 times a year for the last 4 years. This thing absolutely gets put through it, and it's just a basic Echo Home Depot hedge trimmer. I'm pretty sure I got it at Home Depot, maybe Lowe's, whichever one sells these. I remember it like it was yesterday. My steel just stopped running, and I couldn't figure it out. I didn't have time. Went down to Lowe's and picked up this little guy, and it's been running ever since. And here we can see the issues. You'll notice me kind of slow down here in a minute and just kind of go back over things, because I'm like, what in the world is happening? And I think I do zoom in here in just a moment. You're going to be able to see this, but I'm going way slower than I typically would. I'm looking at it right now like, what in the HE double hockey sticks is going on? And so now I'm going to go over to the truck and try to do some base level fixing, lubricating the bar, because sometimes stuff gets gummed up in these teeth. So I'll throw in some WD-40. I'll throw in some resin cleaner after that, which if you don't have those, you should definitely get it. Pretty much anywhere that sells steel is going to have a resin cleaner. And I go back and try it again, and it's not working. And you can see here, I do zoom in on this part, these little white bits, and I'll mark it on the screen right now. These little white strip, like uncut things, it's like ripped. And you can see that on screen now. It's like ripped and it's not actually cut clean, which is not ideal. And when I'm doing this, like in the moment, I actually can feel it, I can see it. The hedge trimmer itself doesn't feel like anything is wrong. The engine is running, it's smooth feeling, but I can feel in my hands when it's cutting the shrub that something ain't right here. And so I have to go back to the truck and tinker, and what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make sure that my blades are the appropriate spacing and tightness. These bolts on the blade pieces, they get loose from time to time, and if there is too much of a gap, the scissoring motion doesn't work as well. But what I do believe ends up being the thing, I got it to work a little bit better, but what I end up coming to the assumption of is that the teeth are just totally worn out, and that, I mean, they are, you know, I'll replace these teeth on this because I do want to try to get a little bit more time out of these hedge trimmers just to see how long they'll actually go commercially. But I'll do a video replacing these teeth and doing full maintenance on it and all that kind of stuff later. But I got it to an acceptable point to where I could actually trim these things up and get through my day. And it was just on these hedges with these thin, wispy little branches that I was really having the issue. The thicker stuff, it would just cut through, no problem. So let's see what Vlog Aaron had to say on that day.
All right, so I got that fixed, and I just want to zoom in here and show these new cuts. And then let's walk over and look at the old, where I realized I was having an issue with my cut. And let's just see. And you can see there's a lot of splintering and tearing and stuff like that. Stuff like that. And so I'm going to try to go back over this one, but let's just take another quick look at the good cuts, and hopefully you can see this is the kind of stuff where, you know, you've got to be able to recognize when there's an issue, you know, because there's still a little bit of a problem. Obviously I need to tweak it just a little bit more, but that entire shrub over there has that issue. This one has, well, it's just sticking up. This one has a couple, but it's way better. It's actually acceptable, whereas the other one just looks horrible. Come here. Oh. Stop for a minute. Took a little trip to the little lawn guy's room, the bathroom, and got some snacks. Dude, beef jerky. It's $20 a bag, and it is nowhere near as good as it used to be. Old Trapper is the brand, okay? And it's the closest thing to what I remember beef jerky being as a child, but it's not it. It's not it. It's really not good. It's acceptable. It's calories and protein, but I also got a honey bun. Dude, when I'm out working and I forget to eat or I forget breakfast, I turn into like a pregnant woman with these weird, I want sweets and protein. Dude, things change so much, and there's so much. Look at this bee. Look at this bee. Sorry. Can you see that? Little honeybee. Too bad my windows aren't cleaner. Anywho, yeah, good times. Take a little break. The thing with my hedge trimmer I don't know how I'm going to edit this down in the voiceover or whatever, but stuff like that you got to be able to look out for, and you got to realize when you have a problem, because I feel like a lot of people would run into that situation where it's not cutting, and it to me, it doesn't feel right. Like, to use it, like you can feel it kind of snagging and not really getting that satisfied chop. I feel like most people would just kind of glance over that or just not even realize it is an issue, and they would be okay with just kind of taking the bulk off, right? To me, that drives me up the wall. I would spend the next 4 or 5 hours. I already spent like 30, 40 minutes messing with my blades, and what I think is going on with my hedge trimmer is that my blades are bent. They're definitely not dull. I've sharpened them recently. I try not to over sharpen them because they do wear out. You know, I'm going to have to replace them this winter for sure if I'm going to keep that set of hedge trimmers, which I'm kind of 50-50 about. Like, I kind of want to keep them just to see how far they'll go, but at the same time, it's like I can get a new pair. You know, I don't have to cheap out on the hedge trimmers. It's not that expensive, but they work. If they work, they work. They need new blades because the blades bent. Because what ends up happening is, and I hopefully I don't know, maybe I mentioned this or not before, but everyone I feel like uses their hedge trimmers as like kind of like a saw, and sometimes you get on the things that you trim that are a little bit too thick, you know, or maybe even a bundle of, you know, thicker parts of the hedge, and you get that where it's like pretend this is the hedge and it's going, and you just kind of do this until it finally saws through it. That's the kind of stuff that will bend or warp, or whether it's the gears in the gear head or it's the blade itself, stuff like that is what will bend it. Also, those hedge trimmers are old, and I beat the ever-loving heckin' crap out of them. I've had them I just throw them in the truck, you know, and they slide around, they roll around, they're in between things, they're getting ratcheted down underneath my debris material. So like any old thing at any old point in the last 2 weeks could have bent it, and I'm fairly certain that's what's going on with those, because I got it to where a small section in the back will cut, but the top section won't. And then if I get the top section to cut, the back section won't cut, or the middle section won't cut. Like it moves. So it seems to me like it's either a bent blade or the things are just wore out, because I have sharpened them since I got them many times. And you can really tell they're worn out if you know what a fresh set of blades look like. But anyway, I'm going to finish my snacks. I've got a bunch of tall hedges here. Got these burning bushes to fix up. Really light trim on those. You don't want to take too much off in the fall, but we'll make it look a little less scraggly, right? And I got a lot of stuff in the back here, dude. This place has so many hedges, and here I sit yapping.
Alright, so this burning bush is one of my favorites. I love this thing. It is very large, and it's just the perfect head shape. I love the vibrant color is just great. They're really easy to work on. Technically, the maintenance regimen is let it grow. But obviously we can't have things just growing wild in city locations, so we got to kind of tidy it up. I would imagine at some point they're going to want to really do a hard cutback on this thing. There are some in the back that are kind of in a weird spot, but you know, those make a little bit more sense. But a couple years ago we were out here. I think there's a video on my channel, but I did a hard cutback on some other burning bushes here which may or may not be in this video. I can't remember. But eventually I would imagine they would want to cut these back as well, just to kind of get some height control on them. But as I've said in videos in the past, if something needs something, I will suggest it. Like hard cutbacks, I always suggest every 3 to 5 years, just to really maintain height and spacing and plant health. So I'll always suggest it, but I'm not going to just do it, you know. And you can see in the very far background, there's those burning bushes. It may be a little difficult to see with the sped up footage, but here we are in the back. I did skip a big section because I was looking at the time and filming and trying to deal with battery switches and stuff like that. That's the thing people don't notice or realize about these YouTube videos is there's a lot of like battery switches and stuff that kind of get in the way of things too. But yeah, we skipped all the way to the back because there was just a big section of, you know, clearing weeds and stuff, which some people may have wanted to see or not. I don't know. But you'll see we're finishing up this last little bit of hedge here. It's another little C-shaped Japanese holly shrub. And try not to confuse your Japanese holly shrubs with your boxwoods because they are very different. These Japanese hollies are much more durable in our Georgia conditions. They're not going to be dealing with boxwood blight like a boxwood would, which is a really big advantage of them. But they do grow kind of like they grow crazy. They grow really fast. If you didn't do them, they would just double in size every year if you didn't trim them all the time. And that's why a lot of these bushes, and maybe I mentioned it, but that's why a lot of these bushes, you know, you're going to see a lot of these have kind of weird lopsided shapes. And a big portion of what that is just, again, every 3 to 5 years you want to do a hard cutback, which they've not opted into yet, and it is an additional expense to do that. But here we are, we're blowing off the concrete, and I remember this being just miserable because the wind was picking up, and we had a cold front that day. And boy, oh boy, was it getting cold, man. I mean, it was chilly. I want to say that night was like 22 or 20 degrees. It was pretty darn cold. But it came on quick. Here we are, wrapping it up, blowing out the pine straw. And I believe I said it earlier in the video, but you can blow out pine straw. You see me doing it here. It's not going to be 100% perfect like you can get a mulch bed, but you can get it pretty darn good. And the good thing about the pine straw is that it is more of a natural looking mulch media, so it kind of blends in really well with the clippings. As weird as that sounds, the clippings just they don't look as bad on the pine straw, in my opinion. That's another reason why I like it. You know, you get a lot more leeway and forgiveness, you know, and you don't have to fight with tarps as much like you do with mulch. Because if you do this on some mulch beds, you'll just blow the mulch right out. It really just kind of depends on how thick it's been laid and what type of mulch you're using. And I did go back here and mow all this, but I'm not including it in the video because crunch for time, and I don't want these all to be an hour and a half long. So yeah, that's it for this one. Let's hear what Vlog Aaron had to say.
All right, this wind is insane. I don't have many options, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's freezing cold. The cold snap was supposed to come tonight, and you know what? I'm gonna say it's here. I'm gonna try to get this stuff mulched up so I can go home. All right, here we go. Let me actually go around this way. So it's still windy, but not as windy. And got the yard mowed and all that. mulched up. And now, problem is that it got so windy that there's still leaves everywhere. And you know what, dude? It looks better, but it's just not anywhere near as nice as I would want it to be. And here's the deal, man. I just don't have time to do much more. You know, we spent 5 hours here today working on hedges. And this is where I'm going to say, for the millionth time, this is where I'll say for the millionth time, perfection is death to a business, okay? Unless you can really position yourself to be a super high-end business, it's not really worth it, you know? Because with what they're willing to pay, and I hope you can hear me, but with what they're willing to pay, and when I say they, I mean everybody, not just this place, there's just no way, especially when you get into a situation like this where the wind kicks up. As a solo, it's so difficult to get all of this done. But you know what? There it is, man. And I'm just realizing that I recorded this in the wrong lens frame. So let me go back and try it with the proper framing.